Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in. I have to admit, the further I get into this video series on composition, the more excited I get. In my opinion, composition is the most important aspect in creating compelling underwater images. The good news is that with composition, it has nothing to do with how expensive your equipment it is or finding an exotic or rare subject. This is the third and last video on framing. Now earlier we learned not to routinely place your subject dead center in the image and consider using things like the rule of thirds. We also learned to use negative space to convey context and dimension, to allow room to breathe and move, and to avoid unsightly amputations of portions on your subject. This video on framing will discuss aspect ratio, and I think it's one of the most important videos, and I'm going to really try hard to show a lot of examples that hopefully might help you with your underwater photography. Many beginning underwater photographers, including myself, have made the mistake of trying to shoot everything with a horizontal orientation. This is really easy to do, especially when you have a routine and you have your strobe conveniently positioned for horizontal framing. I've also heard others state that they just shoot everything horizontally and crop the photo to a vertical dimension afterward, and I have done this myself, but you will lose many pixels, and I think it's always best to try to get the best image you possibly can right out of the camera. More fun too. So we should carefully consider whether our image should be horizontal or vertically oriented. This portrait of a porcupine fish works best, I think, in the horizontal format. Okay? However, a vertical format obviously is the best way to frame this filefish portrait. Similarly, with this vertically oriented trumpetfish, vertical framing results in a much better composition. Now, strobe positioning can be a little problematic with vertical framing when you're switching, but it can be remedied fairly well with just some minor adjustments and a little effort and planning. Importantly, especially with wide angle, vertical framing can also emphasize depth and dimension, and I love it when we emphasize when we can see the undersurface of the water. The horizontal format of this turtle image is somewhat boring, but if we can get low and shoot up, now we show dimension and we highlight the vertical water column, and here the undersurface. The undersurface almost always adds interest and depth to the image. Now here's more examples of vertical orientation, showing the water column to emphasize depth and dimension and a little bit of the undersurface. This image of my daughter snorkeling in the Caymans a few years ago shows several layers, including the seafloor, the jellyfish above it, the daughter and water column behind her above that, and then above that the undersurface with her reflection. I think it's pretty cool. Vertically oriented format is better here than horizontally oriented. And here's a vertically oriented format, a wide-angle shot in Roatan, underwater, shallow water, showing roots, but through Snell's window, above we can see trees and the sky. Now here's a couple shots of an angelfish eye, horizontally oriented, and personally I like the vertically oriented format so much more. Here's a couple more close-up images of a butterfly fish portrait, and again, I happen to like the vertical format better, but you're the ultimate judge. Now I was lucky to get really close to this moray eel. It let me get pretty close, and I got some nice super macro images. Now here's horizontally formatted, but I like the vertically oriented image so much more. I got more of the eye filling the frame, and you can see the cornea, the crystalline lens. I just love that shot. I got close to this trunkfish and composed some unusual close-up shots of a portion of its face, here showing the eye and here showing the mouth. Both images, as you'll notice, with a vertical orientation. Now, another thing, we don't always have to use the popular 4:6 or 4:5 aspect ratios, and your camera might have other settings to shoot, or you can always make some changes post-processing. Depending on your subject, you might want to use a 9:16 or even more exaggerated rectangular aspect ratio. Now here, a close-up of this crab's face is interesting, but everything else in the image is pretty distracting. By really exaggerating and cropping the horizontal aspect ratio, I think this image is much more appealing. Although if you did want to frame it and hang it up on your wall, you might have to pay for a custom frame, because it's a little unusual. Similarly, the horizontally exaggerated aspect ratio of this image really shows the balloonfish cornea really nice. Looks kind of like a rainbow. I love that shot. Here's another example. I really loved the face and lure of the frogfish, but everything else in the image was distracting. Now I tried cropping it more tightly using the same aspect ratio, but either the lure or the eye look like they're really close to the edge of the frame, but most importantly there's still a lot of distracting elements above and below it. So I really cropped the composition and changed it horizontally, this time in post-processing, and now I think it's much more appealing. I emphasized just what I wanted to: the eye, the mouth, and the lure. I still left a little room around the eye and lure without crowding them too much, and yet I eliminated much of the previously distracting portion of the image above and below, although I have to admit the background is a little distracting. But I really do like this image. Now some images are best framed with a square aspect ratio, especially round objects like this beautiful eye of a seahorse, or when you are going for symmetry. Some wide-angle shots work well too. I like the diver and the eel here, but everything to the right of the eel was kind of boring. I cropped it in post-processing, made it a square format, and I think this is a much stronger image now. Finally, when we consider orientation of our image, we can also remember to rotate our camera slightly to better fit the subject in our image. This butterfly fish, I think, looks better when the camera is rotated slightly counterclockwise. Now the bottom part of the fish is parallel with the lower border of the horizontal frame. This vertically oriented angelfish fills the frame much better when the camera is rotated slightly clockwise, with the results shown here. You're the ultimate judge. By slightly rotating our camera counterclockwise, this lionfish looks so much better when the lower fin is completely parallel with the lower portion of the frame. I just love that shot. So I hope these examples on carefully considering horizontal versus vertical format, and also considering changing the usual aspect ratio for your images, helpful. Thank you so much for your attention.